Good morning readers, it's Tilly here from Tilly's Shelf and welcome to what is going to be a very silly bookish breakfast. So we've been quite serious so far in Victober on this channel. We've been talking about poetry every afternoon in serious tones, you know, trying to learn something from it, I suppose. And yeah, I just wanted to do something completely different. So I was rereading North and South the other day, which I wasn't supposed to be doing. That wasn't part of my scheduled Victober reading at all. And I came across this description, quite a precise description of Margaret Hale's hairstyle, and the style that it's for is for the scene where she goes to dinner at the Thorntons' house and meets some of the other manufacturers and sort of starts to hear about the idea of the strike that's going to happen. And it is the day before, if you haven't read North and South, an incident happens between her and the main romantic lead that leads to a significant escalation in tensions. So you've got to think about Margaret, you know, turning up at this dinner party looking drop dead gorgeous and, you know, setting the scene for that romantic tension to escalate from the following day. So she turns up in this like white silk dress. I don't have a white silk dress. Short of putting on my wedding dress, I don't actually have a white dress at all, but I do have this white shirt, which obviously, you know, is nearly as grand as a Victorian evening outfit. And I'm going to try and do my hair like hers. Although I'm not going to pretend to be like the majestic image that we have of Margaret. So Margaret's black hair was too thick to be plaited. It needed rather to be twisted round and round and have its fine silkiness compressed into massive coils that encircled her head like a crown and then were gathered into a large spiral knot behind. She kept its weight together by two large coral pins, like small arrows for length. Her white silk sleeves were looped up with strings of the same material, and on her neck, just below the base of her curved and milk-white throat, there lay heavy coral beads. So I find this description quite interesting, and that was what really got me into the idea of trying to do it for myself, because I have like relatively thick long hair, but it's definitely not too thick to be plaited. In some ways, the longer and thicker it becomes, the more I have to depend on plaiting it. And I was planning to do this video, so I did it in plaits yesterday to try and make it more like manageable and workable for doing this hairstyle today, because that's what I found is the only thing to do with it, because otherwise it just, you know, yeah, anyway. And the length that it implies is quite extreme, because what they're saying is that it's twisted around her head. Let's just roughly demonstrate that. Like a crown, so like it's up like that. And then there's enough of it left to do a massive bun at the back. So yeah, that's definitely not the kind of length that we're working with here. I think there's definitely something to be said in Victorian literature with this idea of women having loads and loads of hair being really like beautiful and voluptuous and I guess kind of like sexually appealing, and that goes through, that's not just a Victorian thing, like you can find that in the earlier 19th century as well. So thinking of like the heroine of Self-Control by Mary Brunton, she is described very similarly to Margaret Hale actually, in terms of being like a slightly empress-like figure and having this like really these rich tresses of masses and masses of brown hair. And if you look at Victorian hairstyles, they're all about like making the most out of the amount of hair that a woman has, and they did actually use hair extensions and not quite like the big cushions that you'd have had in the 18th century, early 19th century big fluffy hairstyles, but they did definitely add hair to their hair to make it bigger. So I definitely can't do the style exactly as it's described, but we're going to play around. So what's the other things that I'm going to need for this? I've got a mirror. And then I have also got, so it says that she's got these coral pins, and I think it's worthwhile saying that these coral pins were a gift from her cousin Edith, or no, her Aunt Shaw, who at that point was in Italy or Corfu. I think there's something to be said in this story about people that Margaret loves going to the Mediterranean where she cannot access them. She's trapped in this kind of like gritty, grimy, dirty mill town, and people that she loves are trapped in different ways, over in that, like the south of Europe, and they send her back like really beautiful exotic items to wear. So she also has her sister-in-law, her brother's new wife, sends her like a black Spanish mantilla lace thing, and then her aunt sends her these corals, and I don't know whether her cousin Edith sends her anything. I can't remember precisely, but just these gifts that add to Margaret's status. It's this idea that it's not something that somebody can just buy, and Milton is all about people just buying things and people knowing the value of things, and you know, like people looking at somebody's dress and knowing exactly what it was worth. And Margaret acquires these kind of like priceless items, like items that can't be assessed in the scale of Milton's price range, and that kind of adds to her status and her like exotic beauty, I suppose. So I don't have any elaborate coral pins. So I was looking at Victorian hairstyles and to see what would be the most fitting hair thing that I had, and I'll show you the picture that I found of coral hairpins. I found a couple. So there's one a bit like that. I think that is, oh, whoopsie. So I'm just gonna pause. So the other thing I'm trying for this video is the pause function on recording, because I don't think you want to watch me plaiting my hair for ages. So I just tried that there then. So I've got one that looks like that and one that looks like that. I like that better for Margaret Hale because it's got that kind of like slightly natural look to it. So I think she'd appreciate that with her associations with the South and with being out in nature. And I like this one as well because it describes them as being almost an arrow in length, and that one does look like in real life it might be the length of an arrow. One of the things that really amused me when I first read that description is that it says that she holds up the entire weight of her hair with 2 pins, and I'm sure my mum, who did my hair for my wedding, can attest. The idea of holding up even this weight of hair with 2 pins is quite laughable. Like I just couldn't do it. Not for any sustainable length of time. So yeah, so I guess her pins are quite a lot bigger than my pins, which I will show you now. I've got some fairly standard bobby pins. Then I've got some slightly ornamented bobby pins. Not at all like glamorous Victorian coral, but they'll have to do. And then I've got one of these because, as you can see from those corals, they and in a lot of the styles I saw, they had a thing for these kind of like comb hairpin things. And I think that's more realistic as well. Like, I don't think I could hold up my hair with 2 pins, but 2 pins that actually have multiple prongs on is a bit more realistic. And these are just things that I've had in my hairdressing box for a very long time. So we'll see how they work to hold this up. So the other thing I wanted to show you is the interpretation in the BBC miniseries of this hairstyle. It's completely different from the book. I don't know whether you can see that very well, but they've just kind of like done some twists from the front. And then she always in this film, she has like a really nice elaborate bun at the back, but she doesn't have that kind of like coil going across the top, which seems to be kind of like a distinctive feature of the hairstyle. So I won't be doing exactly that, but it's good to have it for inspiration. And then also some pictures from the time period. So this is Elizabeth Gaskell in the 1830s. And I think that kind of plait that she's got across the top could be almost what she's referring to, like the idea that it almost makes a crown for her. And then she's got these really like big poofy side bits that I am definitely going to struggle to create. And then there's a whole range. If you just type into Google Victorian 1850s hairstyles, you get like an endless selection. But I just wanted to point out that they are generally based around a centre parting. And not many of them seem to have this coil going across the top thing. The one that does, I think, is this one that you can only see the back of, F. And then at the back, it's got this super elaborate bun. I'm not going to be able to achieve that because I don't have a servant to dress my hair at the back. But we're going to see what we get. We're going to just experiment, and it's going to be fun. So I'm going to start. Where my hair was plaited yesterday, it's kind of divided into 3 strands on each side. So I'm going to take the front strand on each side, if I can. Separate the rest of it out to the back. And I'm going to use these for my coils that are going to go over the top of my head. So if you have brushable hair at this stage, I would probably brush it, but mine, if I brush it, it'll trust me, it'll just make it worse. So I'm going to start by doing a little twist. I'm not going to try and do this neatly at all, because I don't think I can. Just building this hair into a bit of like a twisty thing. It's not going to be like big and fluffy like that one we just saw in Elizabeth Gaskell, because I can't really achieve that with my hair, but I'm going to try and puff it up. The other thing is that they would have had like really little curly fringes across the top of their head, so it would have looked quite different in terms of that. And then when I've got to the back of my ear, I'm not going to add any more in, I'm just going to twist it all the way around. And then wrap it around the back. Ooh, underneath all of that other hair that's going to go into the bun at the back. And then keep twisting. And then I'm going to bring that around and over the top. Like so. And that's going to be the coil like a crown. So I'm just going to pause the video and pin that down. It's not really very visible and that's annoying, but I'll see if I can like fluff it up a little bit. I'm going to pause the video, pin that down and do exactly the same on the other side. Okay, so I've done that. What I've actually ended up doing is, instead of trying to tuck the ends in really neatly, I've decided I'm going to use these as my like frilly, curly, fringy bits that we were just talking about. I can't really get them right, I guess. They would have been like more like ringlety curls, but I don't have a curling iron, so that's just not gonna be able to happen. But just to like add a little bit of breadth to the sides of my head, and add a little bit of that fringy look that they would have had. So yeah, I think that works all right. And then I've got the two coils over the top of my head. I've tried to like plump them up a little bit, but I'm really worried of just like knocking them off. Like they don't feel very secure. And then I've just like tried to pull out at the front a little bit to try and give a little bit of lift to the top of that hairstyle, which is what you see in the mini-series version, if I can get that picture up again. Oh, no, apparently not. Yeah, where she has that quite, like, a lot of, like, volume and buoyancy at the top of her head. Obviously, she'll have had a hairstyling department to help her with that, which I don't, but yeah. So, to go to the back of the head, at the moment I've just got hair. And what we saw in that picture from Victorian times, in these hair plates, is the buns are not just buns. So even though in the description it describes it as just like a massive coiled bun, let's go back to that initial description. Gathered in a large spiral knot behind. I feel like it should be a little bit more decorative, because if I just do this now into a spiral knot, I'll pause it and show you. Here we go. So it looks all right. It actually looks a little bit better than I thought it was going to, but it doesn't look kind of special enough for the hairstyle. So I'm gonna break off the tracks a little bit of the description, and I'm gonna plait it, because I think that's gonna make it look a little bit more elaborate and a little bit more kind of Victorian evening hairstyle-y. So that's done now. So I've got my hair just in a completely normal 3-stranded braid. I didn't bring a hairband to secure the end, so I've just put a pin in. And now I'm going to do what, if you've ever seen any hairstyling videos, you'll probably know of like plumping it up basically and making it look as voluminous as I can. So my hair is not as thick as Margaret Hale's, so I feel like it's fair enough for me to cheat a little bit and get that effect of really big hair and lots of it. So if you just like pull the sides of plaits, this is not a hairstyling channel, and I declaim all responsibility for explaining things properly, but it just kind of like pretty much doubles the width of the plait and makes it look like there's a lot more hair in it, just by stretching it out a little bit. So a plaited bun is my most normal hairstyle for work, I would say, because I find it's normally the most secure for my hair, and it looks like you've put a little bit of effort in without it actually being a lot of effort. So what I'm going to do with this plait is I'm basically just going to lift it up, smash it on the back of my head like that, pin it at the top there, loop it round, and just do it in like a big circle so that it'll end up something along those lines. But I will do that with the video paused, because I don't want to take up too much of your time. But really just like one pin in each place just to hold it all together. And then I'll start with the decorative pins. So I've done the basic plaited bun now. I will just show you. It's very insecure because I haven't there's literally just 3 bobby pins left because that was all I had left. I didn't bring enough downstairs with me. So now I'm going to go and make it more secure by putting some prettier pins in. And then I'm thinking that I'm just going to put this one kind of on the top a bit to like lend to the idea of a kind of like a crown. So that you might, well, my theory was you might even be able to see it from the front, but it looks like potentially not. I don't really know how you're supposed to use these things, to be honest. I got it when I was a bridesmaid for my aunt when I was about, I don't know, like 13. And I've never really used it since because I don't really know what you're supposed to do with it, but that'll do there. You can't really see it through from the front, but the idea is there. So I'm just going to put these 4 in and then I will show you the finished effect. So we're done. So yeah, this is how to do your hair like a Victorian heroine, but with some cheats. So fake Victorian fringe that doesn't look anything like it's supposed to, fake coils because they don't go all the way around my head and into the bun, and then plaiting the bun to make it look a little bit more voluminous. So I think the little pearly flowers look kind of okay. They kind of give you the right idea. I don't know whether you're getting a very good view from there because obviously you can't see it, but here is a view with a mirror as well. So it kind of has the size and fanciness thing that I was going for. I feel like a Victorian bun would have stuck out a little bit more at the back. If I'd been really clever, I might have like left a little bit of hair out of the plait and then I could have put like an extra bun on top, but I'm not that clever. And that's from the other side, which possibly you get a little bit of a better light effect there. I do kind of like how the coils work, but I don't think this is really a Margaret Hale type look. I think her hair and her general appearance is supposed to make a much bigger impact. This just looks a tiny bit silly, but then so do a lot of those Victorian hairstyles that we saw. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you're enjoying Victober generally, and yeah, I invite you to give it a go and let me know how it goes. I should say that the idea for this video came from one done by Claudia at Spinster's Library, I think 2 years ago now, where she did her hair like a Victorian lady author, and she did, I think she did a style that was used by Elizabeth Gaskell when she was a lot older than in that picture that I showed you, and George Eliot, which was just like a really like sober coils and then into a bun. But yeah, wanted to do something a little bit more flamboyant, and it fitted really well with that little thing that I read in North and South. So yeah, I've enjoyed this. I would say that now that I've put all the extra pins in, it does feel relatively secure. I think I could get through a dinner party like this, and that's with for about 9 pins, I guess. So slightly more than 2. But yeah, it does feel like it could manage that kind of like, particularly if I had really good deportment and I didn't move my head suddenly like a decorous lady was supposed to. But it definitely is not going to last through Zumba, which is the next thing that I'm going to do with my morning. So I'm going to have to change it for a more normal bun, I think. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that. Just another little look for you. Okay. Speak soon. I'll speak to you this afternoon, in fact, with some poetry from Adelaide and Proctor.